right, let's check to see if this is streaming. I know it kind of doesn't matter right this second. Here we go. It looks like it is live now. Because there's no students that are joining us, and that's totally okay. I'm still here teaching because that's what I love to do. And of course, this video is going to be saved and left on the channel, which is great. I wanted to get started with the apocryphal text. So for those of you that are not familiar with what the apocrypha is, we kind of have to go back into a little bit of history about the Bible. And of course, you guys may have heard a lot of different things about the Bible and the books of the Bible and everything. So just so we are all on the same page, the Bible was not written by one person at one time. It's authored by several different people. And oh, it looks like there's 5 people joining us now. That's fantastic. It's I was waiting for you guys, so I don't know if you were all waiting here, and I just didn't see you, and because YouTube doesn't show it, I hope not. But thank you for waiting patiently if you were. So the way that the Bible was put together is there's sections of it that are used in the Jewish religion. These are, you guys may know the Torah. Another word you may know is the Pentateuch. So these are like the first 5 books of the Bible. Hey, Enoch was next to my book to read. I'm stoked. That's great. Thank you. That is a very that is a very close name that I'm not going to pronounce because remember we want to have this sort of student friendly and parent friendly. So please just refrain from trying to make me pronounce your name. I will call you Mother. Okay. So. Anyway, basically the books of the Bible were compiled later on, and these texts, you can, we can talk about the Bible as its own thing separately, and I would like to do like a long Bible study as well. But I think there's a lot of channels that talk about the Bible, and I would like to add to that as more of a study sort of approach. But the Apocrypha itself is what I really find interesting. These are books, for whatever reason, were not in the Bible, but have Bible themes, I guess you can call them. And they've been left out for a variety of reasons. Some of them just seem a bit far-fetched. There was one that was supposed to be like supplemental to the Acts, and I think it was Peter. If not Peter, Paul, but I think it was Peter. He was trying to prove that God was, like, Jesus really was the one to worship or follow, and that Yahweh something, and somebody else was trying to show that you could just do something with magic. This is sort of a callback to that story of Moses, where he throws down his rod and it turns into a serpent, and so they have like their magician do that. And he's like, look, you're not doing anything except like basic magic tricks, and he's like, oh yeah, plague, that kind of thing. Except in this case, the hero of our story gets up and like flies around the city, and so something like that is a little bit odd. There's the infancy gospel of Mary, which is, I think I probably want to do next, even though I wouldn't say it's exactly in order, but I would love to do that one next. The infancy gospel of Mary is about Mary, the mother of Jesus, and her life and Joseph's perception while this whole situation is happening. Honestly, I thought it was a really good addition to the Bible. But I suppose there's some parts of it that are a bit sexual, only in that they relate to sexual organs. She is obviously giving birth, and they check her hymen. Hopefully you are aware that a hymen being intact or not intact is not a measure of whether some person has had sex. And if a person has sex, that's their choice. So this is sort of an old concept of that her hymen's intact while she's giving birth, therefore we can prove she's a virgin kind of thing. And so I suppose that maybe it was a bit graphic for the Bible, but I don't know. The Bible has a lot of stuff that is quite graphic in it. But I think the infancy gospel of Mary was quite nice. I want to start with the book of Enoch, though, because it is really interesting. It's referenced in other parts of the Bible. There are some books that were left out because we found them later after the Bible was compiled. Some of the books were left out because, you know, they just seem a bit far-fetched, or they don't exactly blend very well with the themes of the Bible. A lot of the New Testament apocrypha is very Gnostic. We can talk about the Gnostics later, but it was very Gnostic in a lot of the stuff. They're referring to like the Sibylline oracles and those things that are just not biblically, you know, canon, I guess we can say. So the Book of Enoch is interesting too, because who has heard of the Nephilim? I know that you guys are here. The Nephilim is what you're talking about. Let's see what you guys are saying. I probably should change this name. I created back in 2006. I think you can change your names, actually. I changed mine, so that's good. Hiram, thank you for coming back. I'm sorry that you were worried. You guys can check out there's some links on my about part of this channel that go to like Twitter and Instagram and stuff. So if you guys want to, if something happens to this channel and you are curious, you can check those as well. Let's see. In apocryphal works, including the Acts of Peter, Pseudo-Clementines, the Epistle of the Apostles, Simon also appears to be a formidable sorcerer. Yes, so that's it must have been, yeah, Simon Peter. Yeah, he's quite interesting. And then there's a gospel of, or not a gospel, an apocryphal text of Jesus' like childhood, and he's like killing other kids. You know, it's pretty intense. So it's kind of an interesting thing. And there's a good book on full text and commentary of the Gospel of Mary Magdalene by Jean-Yves Leloup. I don't know how to pronounce. I took German, not French. Let's see. Enoch, also character played by Walker Edmondson on the original Land of the Lost. Cool. Thanks. And Scott says, I thought you were gone. Yay. I guess yay is, you know, welcome back. Please remember, if you were following me before, you need to re-subscribe. YouTube got rid of all my subscribers, unfortunately. That's how that happens. So before we get into the Book of Enoch, I do want to give you a link. This is my favorite that I found so far. If there's a better one, you can post it on the Discord. But this is the link that we're using. You guys cannot post links in the live chat. YouTube does not allow that. I think it's to prevent spam. I can post links because it's mine. That's what YouTube allows. So that's the link that we're using. Obviously, you can see it on the screen as well, but if you want to check it out later, it reads quite well. I normally have it on dark reader mode, and that works really well with this. I also usually have it on, what's it called? Mobile, and it works really well on mobile as well. So you can see there's not a lot of any fancy images or anything. It's just text on a screen. Yeah, I know about the Nephilim. A lot of creationists bring those up, as I recall. They also played a major role in the 2014 movie Noah. You know, I never saw that movie. Do you recommend it? But yes, there are a lot of people that bring up creationists. So I just wanted to start first with the other books of the Bible that kind of reference it. The website I'm using, I have used forever, and I will link it here as well. This is blueletterbible.org. If you want to type it even faster, you can type in blb.org. Okay. The reason I like this is you can search for all kinds of stuff, and you can also search for it in so many different translations. So that is a really helpful thing. So this also works very well on a mobile device, and you can type something in here. You know, for the Genesis 6 verse that we were going to be talking about that refers to the Nephilim, you know, if you remember part of it, like the sons of God, then boop, right here, now cool, and we can go through this and so on and so forth. All right. Neat. Thank you, Job. Has anybody read Job? Job is just a train wreck. Absolute train wreck. All right, so these are some sections that do reference Enoch, so we're just going to read. There's a lot of chunks out of Jude 1. We're just going to read Jude 1, 4 to 15. For there are certain men, you know what, let's just go to the beginning. Why not? It's only three verses. Jude, the servant of Jesus Christ, and the brother of James, to them that are sanctified by God the Father, and preserved in Jesus Christ, and called. I am going to stop this for a second. I do apologize. My eyes are not the best. Mercy unto you, and peace and love be multiplied. Beloved, when I gave all diligence to write unto you of the common salvation, it was needful for me to write unto you and exhort you that ye should earnestly contend for the faith which was delivered unto the saints. I like the King James Version, but I don't know if it's super accessible. So why don't we go to this version? This one tends to speak more common English. Because I know some of you that are watching, you're not native English speakers, and even for native English speakers, the King James Version can be a little bit clunky. Personally, I was better able to understand the King James Version after I started studying German. So if that kind of gives you an example, or kind of explains the difficulty in some of the English, how clunky it is. All right. So, beloved, when I gave all diligence to write unto you of the common salvation, it was needful for me to write unto you and exhort you that you should earnestly. Did we not? We're going to, let's see, can we change it here? It just didn't update like I thought. Because I'm like, ye is not what we're looking for. There we go. Lovely. Dear friends, although I was very eager to write to you about the salvation we share, I felt compelled to write and urge you to contend for the faith that was once for all entrusted to God's holy people. For certain individuals whose condemnation was written about long ago have secretly slipped in among you. They are ungodly people who pervert the grace of God into a license for immorality and deny Jesus Christ, our only sovereign and Lord. Let's see. That's weird. There should have been a reference to Enoch here. All right. Though you already know this, I want to remind you that the Lord at one time delivered his people out of Egypt, but later destroyed those who do not believe. And the angels who did not keep their positions of authority, but abandoned their proper dwelling, he has kept in darkness. You know what? Let's just double check that Enoch is even mentioned here in the NIV. Because I was doing this in the King James Version, and I'm very sad if it is not mentioned here, because you can see this is a lot more readable. Do you know what I mean? But I'm not seeing it. That is unfortunate. All right, well, let's go back to KJV then. All right. While we're doing that, I'm gonna check what you guys are writing. The Noah movie was bananas. Long time no see. I'm still subscribed, even though you restarted your channel. Cool. I do recommend Noah. It relied on a particular interpretation of the text. There's a name for it, but for the life of me, I can't remember. Hello, Ratsa. 114. Maybe that's what it is. 114 and not 14. Thank you. And Enoch also, the seventh from Adam, prophesied of these, saying, Behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000 of his saints. Yeah, but was that, did I miss that? Was that just, you know what I'm saying? This is what I meant by my eyes not being the best. Was that not in the NIV? Yeah, well, there it is. Enoch, the seventh from Adam. My goodness. You see, guys, this is why you gotta go through these things much more slowly. Anyway, so it's interesting, right, to see this in there, because who the heck is Enoch? We didn't really hear about him in the Old Testament. And you'll see he's referred to, and you can see these here, 2 Peter and so forth. There's references like, so the seventh that they're talking about was Enoch. So the eighth for 2 Peter 2:4 is if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved into judgment. This doesn't say Enoch, but when did this happen, right? When did this happen in the Bible that the author of 2 Peter, which is most likely not Peter, but the author of 2 Peter is writing about this, right? How many of you have heard that demons are angels that were cast down to hell? Perhaps a third of the angels specifically. Has anybody heard that Lucifer had started a rebellion against Yahweh, and that as a punishment, the angels that joined Lucifer in this rebellion and Lucifer were cast into hell? Has anybody heard that before? Hello, Will Philippi. You haven't missed anything. We're just kind of going through like a preamble for the book of Enoch, and I will say it is very ambly. Who needs 10,000 saints anyway? What will they do with all of them, right? So has anybody heard that though? I know there is a bit of a lag between what I say and then what you guys hear. So I will take a sip of I have 2 drinks here. I have a blend of tea that I salvaged. It was really good. It was a breakfast in Paris tea, but the website ran out because of, I don't know, stocking issues. So I had an English breakfast tea that was a bit too strong, so I just mixed it with the rest of the tea leaves. So there's this. And then there's some more peppermint mocha coffee that I made. All right. Yeah, I've heard that somewhere too. And it was really strange because when I read the Bible, so for my background, I was actually wanting to enter the ministry field. And so I studied the Bible to, you know, be a good minister. And I had a really hard time finding anything. Yeah, there was mention of it, but the comments that I had heard in church during sermons seemed to be really, really specific. And I had started getting into this practice of when the preacher started talking about a verse or something, then he would just keep talking about the verse and maybe pick another verse that might go with it later on in the Bible or earlier in the Bible and just kind of have a sermon about a thing inspired by a couple verses. And I don't know, to me that just was So I wanted to really get into it. If you know, so you can see that that you know, one of the things that they found in psychology is like your temperament as you're younger tends to be your temperament when you get older. And so for me, being this like nitty gritty nerd, basically, let's go and like do all the little pieces that nobody cares about. We're still doing that today. Doesn't work in social situations, but it is great for teaching. So anyway, I was always wondering where's the rest of this? This seems like a really big event, right? This is the creation of hell. This is the rebellion of heaven. And what? We get 2 Peter 2:4. That's our big mention of it. Is it all just extrapolated from this? Where did this come from? So 2 Peter 3:16, and also in his epistles, I don't think it was 3:16, I think it was 3:13. Yes. Nevertheless, we, according to his promise, look for the new heavens and a new earth wherein dwelleth righteousness. Where is this new earth? And so for those of you that have read Revelations, you guys might understand there is a new earth mentioned there. What are we talking about with a new heaven and new earth? Okay. I think there we are. He that believeth on me, as scripture hath said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. So what is that a reference to, right? The Nephilim, now that's another, you know, so what we've seen so far is that we saw Enoch as a name, okay? And then there's these other references that don't necessarily mention Enoch, but aren't really found elsewhere in the Bible. So we're going to go ahead and just talk about the corruption of mankind. Ooh, I like that this is copyrighted. Copyrighted? Copywrit? This is why I'm not your English teacher. Okay. Let's, NIV, okay. I know we like the phrase, the sons of God, but we still get that with the NIV. So, when human beings... Oh, wait, we lost that title. Wickedness in the world. Okay, that's all right. We like the alliteration. We like it. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they choose. The Lord said, my spirit shall not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal, and their days will be 120 years. First of all, let us just, let's see, centenarians 2020. How many people are over 100? Thank you. See, again, I'm not your English teacher. How many centenarians are alive today? Ooh, that's a lot. That's a lot. Of course, you know, we do have to remember that some places they're just claiming to be that old. You know, we can't really like verify it if you don't have a birth certificate from that time. You know what I mean? you can't really cut a person open and just count the rings either. So, you know, this is kind of interesting. So I just want to see what's like the oldest person that we've got right now. Who is that? All right, 112, 110, 109, 105. I think they're just going to get younger. Yeah. Okay, so today, the oldest person is, oh, their birthday's coming up in April. That's lovely. Good job, Ruth. Okay. While we're doing this, let's just check the comments. Let's see, Revelations 12:4. Thank you. How are Krampus and Chaco doing? Chaco has grown. He is big. Krampus is outside yelling. There are more people over 100 than people in Iceland. See, Ratson, you know more about Iceland than you think. All right. So here we have just some interesting information, right? I don't know. It's kind of weird. Okay. Now, of course, this is because earlier in Genesis we are introduced to people that are quite old. You guys might have known, like, or may have read. You know, Noah was supposed to be 600 something years old. And just in case you care, Methuselah is a lovely tree that is getting on 4,900 years old. Isn't this lovely? Look at this guy. It's still alive. It still grows stuff sometimes, but pretty cool looking. This is what I would expect a really old tree to look like, isn't it? That's a good time. All right. The Nephilim were on earth in those days and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. The Lord saw the great wickedness of the human race and that every inclination, their thoughts, evil. God regretted this stuff and said, I'm going to delete them. Now, when you're reading about the flood, because I know this pops up a lot in sermons, this was pretty funky to read, you know, as a teenager. I had the NIV translation. That was my Bible. And I saw this and I just thought, what? Because the pastor would always start here, right? They always start, oh, God's mad, God said, and then delete. Okay, then it rains, right? And how Noah listens to God, and that's the thing. Okay, but wait, let's rewind. Pastor, why didn't you go over this section? And that's just such a funky 4 verses, isn't it? If you just read it. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but when I saw this, I was like, where's the book on this, right? Where is this? Because this is not something you can just say for 2 seconds and then, oh, okay, then move on. Oh, there's a flood. You know, let's talk about the flood. The flood, okay, floods happen. Maybe not a worldwide flood, but floods happen. Yes, they're sad, and yes, they're devastating, and yes, from a geography perspective, they're very interesting. But this is really interesting, right? Where was this? So that's where we have to turn to the book of Enoch. All right, so this is when we're going to go ahead and get started with that. So is there any question, comments, all of that stuff? Let's see. 32nd book of Proverbs. What about it? Did you just want to check it out? Proverbs. You can do that too. Proverbs 32. That's why I like this Blue Letter Bible. 31. Oh, you mean there's a 32nd book that's not in here. Okay. Let's see. Dagny Carlson was on that list. I knew her from her blogging. Did not know she was top 10 old. See, I don't know who these people are. This Jean Calment. So that's cool. I'm glad you guys know some of the old people. I'll leave this up then while we're waiting to see if any of you guys have any quick questions to go over this. So we're not going to do the entire book of Enoch. We're going to do the first 10 chapters today and then the next 10 chapters next time. If you guys want to read ahead, cool. But the first 10 chapters, I know that might sound like a big ask, but I think 2 of them is just like a sentence. So they're not as big. There's only maybe two really longer chapters. So the 10 chapters will be a nice blob. to go through. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna set this up a little bit different so I can see your guys' comments at the same time. Okay. I'm back. I'm going live. Yes. Okay. So Shuggle, how did any of you see this? That's my question. Because I know that most of you were not written, or not, sorry, I'm reading and speaking at the same time. I know I didn't have any subscribers, so I was just wondering how that happened. Why is the Bible written like that? Why not longer paragraphs? That's a great question. It depends on, a lot of it depends on what we found. So if we look at something like, I know somebody mentioned the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. Yeah, why don't we look at that? I think, well, let's look at the Gospel of Philip. That one I know just off the top of my head. Manuscript. And for anyone who just isn't familiar, manuscript is just literally, this is handwritten, okay? This is the Gospel of Philip, right? These are some of the things that we find. This is why we have these pieces of it, okay? There was also, actually, the earliest poem to beer goddess? Oldest beer recipe? No. Ninkasi. Is that her name? Yes, Ninkasi. Poem to Ninkasi. Cool. So, this is a pretty complete poem / recipe to the goddess of brewing, Ninkasi. It's a Sumerian goddess. Okay. When we read it, we're left with stuff like ... and just chunks that are kind of missing. But yeah, this kind of tells like, oh, you're the one who blesses our blessed beer making. So if you guys want to talk about history through the context of beer, we can do that. That's quite fun, I think. I was also you were also in my notifications. It looks like I'm still subscribed with notifications on. Well, fantastic. Fantastic. Let's see, the video was in your feed. Cool. I don't even remember subbing. Let's see. I checked YouTube on my phone mid-gaming, saw you were live. Cool. Okay. Came up my notifications. Well, great. I'm glad it's still doing that. We did one yesterday. It did not probably come up in your notifications, so perhaps it has to do with the tags. I'm sorry to keep talking about this. I'm just kind of learning how this is working, because this was not the context of my previous incarnation, I guess you can say. All right. So that hopefully kind of answers it. This is part of why we end up with these paragraph pieces. Some of it was just written that way, especially because a lot of this is passed on by oral tradition first, right? So because it's passed on by oral tradition first, if we have something like this hymn here or a poem, and if it doesn't rhyme in English, but perhaps, in the native language, it made some kind of rhyming sense, this is a lot easier to remember and then pass on. And then once somebody who can write hears it, they're able to write that down. And so that's why you kind of get these chunks as well. So that's one of the things. Yesterday's stream was wild. I'm glad you liked it. Benny, we can chat about that later. It was a very similar sort of thing, but basically, yeah, we can talk about that maybe on the Discord if you want to join us on the Discord. It's just it has some explanation. I don't want to get too off topic. I think it's good sometimes to get off topic-ish, to get tangential but not totally off topic. Has it always been poetry that should rhyme, or is it more about the words flow? I don't know enough about this, like Sumerian, right? And I also don't know enough about ancient Hebrew to answer that question. I can't hazard a guess. I will say though, with the Greek manuscripts, a lot of those we are missing sections, so that's why they kind of end up a little weird. Let's see. CET time zone, bit late for me. Yes. So that's correct. I do apologize about that. I try to get us in here. So this is my 8:40 a.m. In Korea, and you know, I can try earlier, maybe 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. Just depends on how I'm feeling that day, I guess. Alrighty. So hopefully that kind of answered it. The nice thing too, though, is that even though we're reading through this, it's not as long as it could be if it was written out. All right. So the words of the blessing of the tininess that I'm having trouble reading, we're gonna make you bigger. Oh yes, there we go. That's what we like. My goodness, even with glasses on. Ugh. There's nothing wrong with getting older. It's just some of the parts stop working. Okay. The words of the blessing of Enoch, wherewith he blessed the elect and righteous, who will be living in the day of tribulation, when all of the wicked and godless are to be removed. Okay, so let's just unpack that, right? Enoch is one of those dudes in the Bible that gets assumed. I guess that's the Catholic way, the assumption. He just got like straight taken up into heaven. This dude won't die. Okay. This doesn't happen very much. What Elijah this happened to, and Jesus this happened to, and Enoch this happened to. So these guys never died. Okay, that's a big statement, right? But this is also again referring to that. There's a lot of comments about Revelation, which is the last book of the Bible, and it talks a lot about the apocalypse, the end of the world as we know it, and you won't feel very fine. And people thought, you know, this is some weird fever dream of the author, and it could have been. I don't say that that's not true, but the idea that there is an end of the world and there's a great punishment that's going to happen and the righteous will be saved and all of that, that is not something that came with Revelation. That is, or the book of Revelation, that is something that is like a recurring theme in a lot of religions. So we just want to kind of say that. Let's see, 8:40 a.m. in Korea. It is 1:41 in South Egypt. Yes. Is it a book of the Bible, or is an interpretation of the life of Enoch that is attributed to him? So this is not a book from the Bible. This is an apocryphal text. So these are, we kind of talked about it in the beginning, but just to kind of quickly go over it, these are books that have Bible themes and otherwise feel like they should have been included in the Bible, but were not included in the Bible for some reason. Some of the reasons are just we found the books after the Bible was compiled and we can't just keep adding to it. Other times they're left out because there's some really glaring oddities that don't go with the rest of the Bible. So if you want to watch that, you can watch that earlier in the stream once this is done and then uploaded. Thanks for explaining that. If all those other prophets didn't die, I don't see how Christians see that Jesus is more divine or God. That's a great that's a great point, Benny. So early Christians did not see Jesus as God. There was a huge dispute between this in the early centuries of the church, whether Jesus was God or Jesus was just a prophet. And part of the arguments for him being just a prophet are the facts that a lot of the stories of his life kind of are echoed in a lot of the stories of like the previous prophets. One interesting thing, however, is his 40 days in the desert sort of issue. That actually shows up in the infancy gospel of Mary. Mary and Joseph are stuck for 40 days in the desert, which is kind of an interesting thing, and we'll talk about that when we talk about that book. Sorry. But yes, this is an interesting concept. So the idea that Jesus is God or part of God or the Son of God, or however you want to view that's in any way related to divinity, that was not something the early church Christians believed. Can you tell me what language these books were written in? I know the Book of Job has some elements that say it was written in Arabic. As far as I know, I think the Book of Enoch was written in Hebrew, but let's double check. Original language, Book of Enoch. So I don't want to misspeak, and we're connected to the, let's see, Ethiopic. Okay, so it is from Hebrew or Aramaic and then into Greek. So that is interesting. Yes, by the way, Ethiopian Christians have a different Bible. There's like, I think the Book of Enoch, and there might be another one that's included in there, but it's a little different. And then there's also a church in Ethiopia that they believe they have the Ark of the Covenant, which is kind of interesting too. All right. Interesting. I will join your Discord. What is it? If you go to my channel, it is listed there as one of the links on the About section, but I can just put the link here as well. What do we got? Invite people, and then this way other people can maybe see it as well. Don't expire, no limit, generate link, copy. It's like all these clicking steps to this. I mean, I like the sound of the click, but that's about it. All right. Please remember that for this Discord, it is just like minor friendly. So please make sure to read the rules. There's not a lot of rules, you know, don't be mean or anything like that. But also just, there are certain things you just don't want to talk about. This is supposed to be something for people. I have read the Ge'ez Bible and the Book of Jubilees, the Third Maccabees, and the canon reaches about 100, but I don't know if that's a position on all the cops. Yes, so there's, it's interesting that there are different books in different Bibles, and yeah, I think it's just interesting. You know, why do some take it out? Why do some not put it back in? The way it was explained to me from a sect or cult of Protestantism versus the Catholic Bible was that the Catholics had left in some books that were just, you know, stories about whatever, you know, somebody's shopping list or something. That's what I was told. Yeah, so it's a little interesting. We can definitely go over those books. I think that would be good and helpful to go over some of those books for sure. All right. And he took up his parable and said, Enoch, a righteous man. Sorry, my goodness. I feel like it's boot camp all over again. I'm losing my voice. All right. And he took up his parable and said, Enoch, a righteous man whose eyes were opened by God, saw the vision of the Holy One in the heavens, which the angel showed me. And from them I heard everything, and from them I understood as I saw, but not for this generation, but for a remote one, which is for to come. Okay? And just to kind of, you know, unpack that, Enoch is basically saying, hey, God showed me the future. Cool. I think the Ethiopian church is older than the Bible we know. I believe so, and that's why they might have another Bible. Yes, but remember also the Bible that was compiled in Europe. So the Bible that we have as Westerners was compiled in Europe. So these Bibles were compiled separately. Obviously, you know, with the Roman Empire, it was reaching into Northern Africa as well. You're going to get, as Christianity is spreading, even early Christianity, like pre-Christian Rome, you're going to get Christians that are spreading into Africa, and they're going about their thing, they're doing their thing, separately from the Christians that are in other places. We definitely are at a wonderful advantage having the internet. That's not something that, of course, they had, you know, nothing similar to it, not even a really good mail system. So there was really no way for them to communicate with the churches in different sections of the world. And so as a result, I think that's why they thought, well, if we're going to compile a Bible, this makes sense for us to include, this makes sense for us to include, and they left stuff out. I mean, I guess this, I wouldn't say arbitrarily. I know that they deliberated upon it. But I think this would sort of anyone who thinks that the Bible was compiled with divine assistance, this would sort of be a way to say no, it wasn't, right? Because if it was compiled with divine assistance, then every church or every sect would have the same books in the Bible. Also, just which access you had. You know, perhaps the Book of Enoch did not exist, like the physical text did not exist in Europe, perhaps. As a result, the people who had it were able to include it in their Bible. So those are some things to also consider for sure. Let's see, their iconography is amazingly detailed. Yes. Let me see if we want to look at that just real quick, just so we can check it out. Let's see, Saints, Girgis. What are we looking at? Iconography, Ethiopian, Coptic, Christians. Cool. I know Coptic's misspelled, but that's okay. For those of you that have never seen Ethiopian Christian art, it's really, I mean, especially compared to like medieval European art, it's really good. So, you know, we got these like, I like these, like the eye circles. That's me after I've read a lot of stuff and like done a lot of stuff. Okay. Like this here, they're making a deal. I'm just trying to think, like, if you never knew some of these biblical stories, you know, what would you think this is? Like, this is when Jesus made the mummy, you know? Very lovely kind of situation here. This is when, yeah, people were hanging out and writing together. What are they? Best buddies, perhaps related because they've got such similar features. But yeah, the Coptic art is really like unique. It looks like this, and there's also another one that is this is a famous one, and this one is also famous. So it's a very interesting kind of look, I think. Very interesting. All right. But question, if it were Ethiopian and people draw Jesus like themselves, wouldn't it be dark-skinned in their artworks? Well, that depends on why would we draw Jesus like ourselves, right? So if, I mean, you might be saying, well, it's because we don't know what Jesus looked like. Then that's true, but, you know, if I'm going to draw a character from a certain region, I'm going to try to keep it looking similar to that region. The idea of like a black Jesus, not exactly accurate. And the same with a white Jesus. There's also Korean Jesus. Okay, so those, I'm not sure why people draw him that way. So I do appreciate that the Coptic Christians kept him looking a certain way. So that is, you know, good job. All right. It looks kind of like Greek Orthodox. Maybe the Greek likes the Ethiopian. It could be they could have inspired each other, especially growing out of that sort of similar region and branching out, you know. So it's interesting to see. It also depends on which missionaries that you would get to, right? If you got Catholic missionaries, you're going to look some kind of way, and if you got Eastern Orthodox missionaries, you're going to look some kind of way as well. The Ethiopians drew pictures based on the writings that mention his description. Yeah, and again, that makes sense even without any description of Jesus. It just wouldn't make sense to draw him the same way as drawing the people that are around you, unless you live in like Judea, you know, the old region of Judea. Then you can draw Jesus like, oh yeah, here, ask your buddy to pose for you and like, you know, copy some of his features, cool. But if you're in, you know, Europe somewhere, or if you're in China somewhere, or if you're, you know, in sub-Saharan Africa somewhere, it doesn't really make sense to look around you and say, Jesus probably looked like one of us. Do you know what I mean? That's just not it. With the Greek Orthodox, you can tell it's their iconography because they have monster foreheads. When I was young, I thought Greek people looked like that. So I was so scared until I met them. Oh dear, oh dear. All right. Let's see. Yes, Orphan Black Ops. I am alive. I'm glad. Please double check if you're subscribed still. If not, please resubscribe to the channel. I just want to show what you were talking about with the Greek Orthodox iconography, and then we'll go back to our good friend, the Book of Enoch. Okay, so these are the these are the foreheads that Shuggle is talking about. Also, Shuggle, every time I see your name, I remember there was this thing that was written in English in Korea. So for Koreans, there's no RL distinction in the language. It's like a halfway sound. It looks like, let me see if I can get my Korean computer typer in. Let's see. Hangul, here we go. So if you can see it here, it looks like that. And so it's sort of a halfway sound. It's like a D sound, D, right? Is that L or is it R? And so L and R are just sort of, like when people are writing from Korean into English, sometimes they forget which ones it is. So they just kind of put whatever. And I saw sugar syrup that was supposed to be for iced coffee, but in English it was written Shuggle syrup. Like that. So every time I see your name, Shuggle, I always think of that Shuggle syrup. Anyway, there we are. These are the foreheads. Very interesting look, isn't it? Very interesting look. Before we go back to the Book of Enoch, I did want to touch on this image I saw right here. Okay. This 6-winged beast here, this is a very interesting this is a very interesting image, first of all. Beautiful colors. Strange pose, like it's I like this. It looks like he's eating coals, or the angel is taken out. But this angel is a seraphim, so these are the ones with the 6 wings. The only thing that's a little weird about the seraphim is that there's 2 wings that are supposed to cover their face. So there's 2 wings to fly with, 2 wings to cover their face, and then 2 wings cover their feet, which is kind of interesting. I'm glad there's a syrup out there close to my name, exactly. All right. The divots are supposed to be wrinkles. Yeah, some of these divots are a bit odd. Maybe at the time they made sense, but I'll give you guys extra credit if you want to draw something in this style. Okay, I always offer my students just random extra credit like that. All right, so concerning the elect, I said, and took up my parable concerning them, the holy great one will come forth from his dwelling. So God's gonna come out his house, man. Like that's a big thing. And the eternal God will tread upon the earth, even on Mount Sinai, and appear from his camp, and appear in the strength of his might from the heaven of heavens. When we see these little brackets here, these are usually a reference to it. There's some pieces missing out of the manuscript, but based on the context, this is the most likely thing it was trying to say. Catholic angelology is serious business. I used to wonder, how did they know all of that? Right. Especially since some of the angels are just like super scary looking. I thought it might be fun to also do like an angel breakdown if we could. So this is pretty interesting. And one thing I love doing when I am doing these lessons is to go through and just check, where are these regions at? Let's just check it. Mount Sinai. Okay. Cool. We can check here. And let's check this one spot. No, we're not allowed to. What about this spot? We're allowed to check out that. Thank you, Sergey, for showing this. Wow, look at this like intense color. This is gorgeous. All right. So this is Mount Sinai hanging out. I mean, I guess if you go up higher, right? That's what we want to do. Okay, cool. We can see that we are above pretty much everything else, right? So if this is written from this region, then it's going to be like, boom, there's God. All right, having a good time. I thought the different foreheads were supposed to separate the order of monks and their affiliation. It could be, but I think that that's not going to be exactly the same for like the Coptics versus the Greeks, but it could be. Copy paste of minor gods of pagans. In terms of angelology. I don't know, Will Philippi. And actually, so when we're going to be reading this Book of Enoch, we're actually going to see some of these things that are going to look pretty pagan, which is pretty interesting stuff, I would say. Let me see here if we can check. Let's see. No, that's okay. All right. So, the eternal God shown his strength. Cool. That's what he's doing. And all shall be smitten with fear. Smitten, of course, here is not like love smitten, right? It's going to smite us with fear. And the watchers shall quake. And great fear and trembling shall seize them until the ends of the earth. Okay. Does anyone know what the watchers are, or who the watchers are? Does anybody know this? Welcome back, Retsa. Mount Sinai Summer, welcome. So is anybody familiar with the watchers? That's my question. I'm gonna pause, let you guys answer that. Drink my stuffs. So are the watchers the angels? Yes. They are a class of angels. So this is one of those like separate classes of angels. Now Benny said the Anunnaki, and that is something that we have to, that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about the Book of Enoch, because the Book of Enoch has really been absorbed into a lot of that like ancient aliens kind of stuff. Yeah, aren't they the aliens in the MC? Right. So this is why I kind of want to go over this as well, just because a lot of times when someone will say, well, this is referenced in this book, and it's like, well, okay, you just kind of take them at their word, right? You know, why would this person be lying to me? And it isn't even necessarily that they're lying. They just could be looking into it in a way that maybe isn't as obvious. Or they might be putting it together with something else that is not readily apparent. So I did want to talk about this. But the Watchers are a class of angels that are tasked with watching over the earth. That's their job, okay? So these are not like messenger angels. These are angels of observation. You can kind of think about it that way. So the high mountains shall be shaken, the high hills shall be made low, and shall melt like wax before the flame. Now that's, I think, a really beautiful way to describe, you know, a horrible volcanic eruption, right? But it's kind of interesting to think about hills, melting. So it's kind of an interesting concept. Sorry. Did they disappear in 2020? The Watchers, yeah. No, the Watchers disappeared way before then, but I do appreciate that hate for 2020. 2020 has been an interesting one, hasn't it? The Anunnaki are a huge concept with a New Age movement. Then I found out about the use of Anunnaki culture, and I did a deep dive into Sumer. Yes. I think that it would be really interesting for us to do more of a deep dive into Sumerian culture. I would like to do that at some point in the future. But yeah, the Anunnaki, for those of you that don't know, like they're supposed to be from a planet called Nibiru, and it's a planet that we can't observe, but people say, oh, well, we think it's there because of some kind of effect that we can see on other planetary movements, but it's not that as far as we know. And also, we don't have to observe it from Earth so much anymore, right? We can observe it with satellites and things, or not satellites, I'm sorry, probes and stuff we could send out. Yeah, there are planets that affect other things, but as far as we know, it's not that. So there's also some people that say it's got a very funky orbit. So if this is the sun and this is like the outer edge of, you know, Pluto or something, that it has this weird orbit that does this somehow. Maybe. You know, but that's anyway, that's the the Anunnaki, like, lore, the New Age lore. All right. Sumer language is easier to learn than it looks. There was a Semitic alphabet that was used for translation. Access it through there. Very cool. If I understood it right, Tolkien was a believer. Are there parallels between the Bible, the Watchers in the Bible, and the deities in the Silmarillion? I'm not sure. I have not read a bunch of Tolkien, so I don't know. If you are able, as we're going through this, then you can point them out, which would be pretty cool. So that way you can bring your background knowledge to it, which is one reason I want to do this, like, as a class type of thing. All the Anunnaki supposedly had enlarged heads. The Paracas skulls they found in Mexico have no sagittal suture, which shows it goes just beyond head binding. Yeah, we actually talked about head binding yesterday, which is pretty interesting. And just with the, there could just be stuff with like inbreeding, that could have contributed to that. The Sumer language indicates the origin of the people in the Niger-Congo Delta, so this makes them cousins of the Egyptians, who also had their origin at Niger, Kordofan. I'm trying to think what you mean. I mean, it's very cool, but I'm just not sure what part is related, or if you're just explaining more about the Sumerian language. But very, very cool, for sure. I've only just started the book. I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but there's a creator, sub-gods, demigods, and all that stuff, and some wizards. It could be, I'm not sure how much Tolkien had read of the Bible and of any of these extra biblical texts, so I'm not sure how close those are. Did you note that they have different head sutures? We didn't. We just had talked about the binding, because we were talking about forensic reconstruction and how we're able to reconstruct the faces of ancient skulls. So that's what we're talking about. Haley, please say Silmarillion. Is that what it is? Silmarillion. Okay, I'm trying. So as we're destroying the mountains, we're also destroying the earth, okay? And again, for any of you that have read Revelations, this is not anything surprising. Everybody dies, everybody's judged, but righteous people are spared, okay? He will protect the elect, and mercy shall be upon them, and they shall all belong to God. They shall be prospered, and they shall all be blessed. And he will help them all, and light shall appear unto them, and he will make peace with them. So that's great for, if you're God's friend. And behold, he cometh with 10,000s of his holy ones to execute judgment upon all and to destroy all the ungodly. And so these are, some of the angels that God is going to, or Yahweh, I want to use the name, that Yahweh is going to bring upon the earth to basically punish it. To convict all flesh of all the works of their ungodliness, which they have ungodly committed, and all of the things the ungodly sinners have spoken against him. Okay, so this is just, hey, apocalypse. All right. But it's apocalypse plus Enoch doesn't die. All right, so that's what Enoch sees, and perhaps the author of Revelations had access to this, and so this is where some of that might have come from. Okay. Let's see. Good thing you're not a teacher of English. Exactly. So Earth here is referring to the land or the globe. So the Earth here, if we think about it, so everything that's upon the earth shall perish. Now, normally in English, I know I said I'm not your English teacher, but in English, when we have this lowercase e for earth, we're talking about the land. Uppercase E, we're talking about the planet. However, I'm not sure if that distinction was made when this person was translating it into English. If we kind of read through it, though, it appears to be talking about the planet, because everyone's gonna just die and everybody's gonna be judged, so we can assume that they're talking about the planet here, just based on that context. But that's a good question. People refer to Enoch being taken up. Some say he was assumed, and others say that he was raptured. So the difference between assumption and rapture is that rapture will take your body disappears from. It's kind of weird to explain it because I guess I always took rapture as like a thing that didn't need any explaining, and now trying to explain it is a bit strange. Assumption is when your whole body is straight up taken into heaven, but I guess so is a rapture, isn't it? You just kind of left your clothes behind. Yeah. So I think they would be the same thing. Yeah, be careful with that word earth in English. The big problem with it too is that not everybody, that's the correct distinction, but not everyone makes that distinction. The sort of the same as you've probably seen people misuse your, Y-O-U-R, versus Y-O-U apostrophe R-E. So there is that distinction, but it's not always used in like everyday English. So we do have to be careful with that. So for chapter 2, okay, I've told you that, some of these are just like one or two long. Observe ye everything that takes place in the heaven, how they do not change their orbits, and the luminaries which are in heaven, how they all rise and set in order in its session, and transgress not against their appointed order. So for those of you that are like, oh, obviously this can't be, some godly inspired thing because, this is obviously not true. Orbits over time can change. Things do not rise and set. It's based on our view of it, but, these stars are not rising and setting, right? Is ye singular and thou is plural? It doesn't have to be. So this is a leftover from German. We don't have a formal U in English, and they have a formal U in German. The formal U in German is the same word as they in German, except the formal U is capitalized, the they is not capitalized. The word is Z, so it's like this, Z versus Z. Okay. The capital one is plural, or not capital one is formal. The lowercase one is plural. So these are, that's what it would be. So the thou is supposed to be like the capital, like the formal. So let me type it out because that's easier. Thou is formal U, and ye could be informal U or plural U. Okay, so that's another way to think about it. Hopefully that helps. Yeah, that's what I meant about the King James Version being a little easier to understand once I started studying German. I don't think that's fair. That's the thing that's so difficult about reading some of these things is that, for people that really want to understand it, it's not fair to ask them, oh yeah, by the way, you need to study this other language in order to get it. It's like, maybe I just wanted to study this thing and I shouldn't have to study another language with it. Yeah. The plural form is atum, and you can use a second title for li, like atum or atuna. Okay. Yeah, so that's one thing we just don't have in English. We have y'all. I like that. That's you all, but that's sort of it. And there's a word for that in German. There's a word for you all, there's a word for they, there's a word for you, singular, and there's a word for you, formal. And those are just a lot of stuff we don't have in English. Same in Swedish. Yeah. Ni is you plural. So the knights that say you plural is what you're saying. All right. Milwaukee Atheist. I think the Hermeneia translations would be better for your study. Any reason why? If you think it would be easier for other people to understand. So this is what I was using, just for me, like by myself. So I've gone through these before. I've used this translation before. So if you have a reason to use that, yeah, I have no problem with doing that. That's one of the benefits of like I tell my students, you know, I'm your teacher not because I know everything about the topic. I just tend to know more about you than the topic overall. That's why I'm teaching it. That doesn't mean I know everything. You guys might know stuff that I don't, and that's fine. And we can, you know, bring our ideas together and learn it together. Teaching is a great way to learn more, and it's not just, you know, me telling you I know everything. It's, hey, I looked at this before, you probably haven't, let me share what I've learned. Oh, what did you learn? Cool. Oh, can we look at it a different way? Also cool. So yeah, I'm happy to use another translation. I just would want to know just why, because I'm comfortable with this translation. English is a West German very, yes it is. A lot of people think that English is like from Latin. There's Latin stuff, but it's not like from, like the grammar and stuff doesn't really come from Latin. Hello test, hello. For those of you that are joining me again, please remember to double check if you are subscribed. All right. So, behold ye the earth, and give heed to the things which take place upon it from first to last, how steadfast they are, how none of the things on earth change, but all the works of God appear to you. Behold the summer and the winter, how the whole earth is filled with water, and the clouds and dew and rain lie upon it. So this is basically saying God is in charge and is going to destroy the earth, and God has done a good job setting up the earth. Okay. It's much newer, and the texts were from the Qumran. Okay, yeah, I'll check that out after this video, and then maybe we can use it for the next one, because we're not going to go through the entire thing. We're just doing the first 10 chapters for this video, and then the next chapters after that. If only Krampus would share his insights, what gems does he possess? Well, he likes to talk a lot. That's why he's not in here. I'm surprised he's not scratching out the door. And again, here's another short one as well. So this is, again, you know, if somebody wants to nitpick about the Bible and not being knowledgeable of everything, and therefore it can't have come from a deity, this would be another example of that, which basically says that, you know, except for 14 types of trees that are evergreen trees, the others, all the trees in the winter go bare, okay? So this is more about like how the earth was set up, and how summer, the sun is there, shade, and earth is burning with the growing heat. It's so hot you cannot tread on the earth or a rock by reason of its heat. So, you know, again, why are we reading this? What is this about? You know, hopefully, you know, that's answered for us in the next chapters, right? So again, we're talking about just all of the things that God has done, and it's showing his power, that even something like a rock is, you can't even touch it because of the sun. It's just, all these things are just so out of our ability to control. Observe ye how the trees cover themselves with green leaves and bear fruit, wherefore give ye heed and know with regard to all his works, and recognize that he liveth, and that he liveth forever hath made them so. So basically, again, look at the trees. Right? That's our classic argument of, well, how do we know that there is a creator? Well, look at the trees, right? This is, okay, that's not a new argument, y'all. That is not a new argument, right? Lee, do you think the apocalyptic language is intended by the writer to be literal, or is it symbolic of something else or another theme? And then Joey says, oh my god, the trees. I know. Observe ye the trees, okay? So look at the trees. Shul, that is a difficult one to answer. Because even today there are people that will say, well, of course it's like a, not, you know, it's a metaphor of some type. But then there are people that think, no, it's literally this thing. I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility to recognize that people back then would also have these types of thoughts, that it could literally be an end of the world, or that it could be a type of ending. The end of life as we know it, but that doesn't mean it's the end of life, period. So that's, you know, one of the things that I try to remind my students is that think about what you would think. You can probably apply that to people in the past, because we're not very different from them. We live at a different time. That's sort of it. So the thought processes that we have, our creativity, our insights, a lot of that is the same as people from the past. So I think for some of the authors, it was a literal concept. For other authors, it was something that we were supposed to interpret. And that's, yeah, I just think it could be either way. I chopped down all the trees in pure defiance, ladies and gentlemen, and here we have the trees. Come, let us adore them. Exactly. So, and all his works go on this way, thus, from year to year, forever, and all the tasks which they accomplish for him, and their tasks change not, but according to God as they hath ordained, so it is done. Which I'm going to just say as a reminder, if we can go to this meme, tide goes in, tide goes out, that is basically what it is. Okay? So if you guys remember this meme, let's see if we can watch this. The tide goes in, the tide goes out, never miscommunication. You can't explain that. And the guy's like, is he for serious? Okay. So tide goes in, tide goes out, can't explain that. That's what this is. All right. God did this stuff, and that's the only reason it works this way. Okay. So this is just part of that type of thinking. And behold how the sea and the rivers in its manner accomplish and change not their tasks from his commandments. But ye have not been steadfast, nor done the commandments of the Lord. But ye have turned away and spoken proud with hard works, with your impure mouths against his greatness. O ye hard-hearted, ye shall find no peace. Okay? So we are now seeing why the author was really building this up, that God has done all this stuff and it's all amazing and everything works the way it's supposed to work because God is awesome and he's made everything and it works super perfectly except for you. You didn't work perfectly and that's why you're gonna die. So that's sort of where we get that. So it's not like singing praises to God because God is great. It's talking about how bad you are. And that's sort of our like stinger at the end here, so it's kind of an interesting way to say that. I mean, when you're reading it like this, or when I was reading it, I was just like, ooh, that's a slap to the reader right there, isn't it? That everything is fine and God is awesome because he's the best and everything works the way it's supposed to except for you. You didn't work the way you were supposed to because you're hard-hearted, you're bad, you're nasty, you're sinful, and that's sort of what's being said here. We can have it with this older language. It sounds kind of flowery. Oh, ye hard-hearted, ye shall find no peace. But he's throwing shade. He's throwing some serious shade at the reader here. Apocalyptic is a weird genre. Apocalyptus in Greek just means to reveal or unveil. J.J. Collins has a great book on this, so whether the authors took it literally or not depends on the context. Right, exactly. I don't think the revelations or Daniel are meant to take in literally, but they include clues of real historical events or figures, etc. Yes, and so there are people that read into certain things, like 666 being a reference to Nero, for example. Why can't you people be more like trees, says Captain Kerf. Exactly. Why can't we be more like the trees? Can we find out that answer in the rest of these chapters? So therefore you shall execrate your days, and the years of your life shall perish, and the years of your destruction shall be multiplied into eternal execration, and ye shall find no mercy. Cool. Your life is short and your suffering is long. That's what we're getting here. Okay. And in those days ye shall make your names an eternal execration unto the righteous, and you shall all who curse, and by you all who shall curse, and the sinners and the godless shall imprecate you, and for you, the godless, shall there be a curse. Okay. This is kind of funkily written, isn't it? Okay. I would like to see the original, just to see why they wrote it this way. But it seems like these go together and these go together, and perhaps they were alternate options. And all the ... shall rejoice. So we're missing that here. And there shall be forgiveness of sins, and every mercy and peace forbearance, and there shall be a salvation unto them, a goodly light. So perhaps this was written sort of in a way that was like, writing, and then two options, the sinner's way and the righteous way, and then now we're going to chapter 8. So that's what I would kind of take from that. Not chapter 8, verse 8. And for all you sinners, there shall be no salvation, but you shall abide a curse. But for the elect, there shall be light and joy and peace, and they shall inherit the earth. So this does seem like it is affecting the earth, but because they're going to inherit the earth, that sort of goes back to a question that was asked before. Is the earth going to be destroyed? There's going to be destruction upon the earth, but it appears that there's going to be the new earth. For any of you that are or were Jehovah's Witness, you will be familiar with the new earth. For any of you that read Revelations, you'll be familiar with the new earth as well. 666 is definitely a reference to Nero, and fundamentalists need to read a lot more. Well, fundamentalists, I would say, need to read, period. As I don't know if you were here in the beginning, but I had mentioned that a lot of the stuff that was like spoken of in the sermon is just like these sections of verses from, different parts of the text, and then making a 1-hour sermon based on that as opposed to just reading the text itself. Do we have a date when this book was composed or written? So we have generally accepted that these are written between 300 BCE and 100 BCE. We can definitely check that or double check that. Not saying that Milwaukee is incorrect, but just to make sure that we're all able to see like why they had come up with that. So when was the Book of Enoch written? Of course, we do know that it's going to have to be written before, in the BCE time period, because the New Testament authors refer to it, okay? So they probably go back to the 1st century BCE. For those of you that are not familiar with this, BC became BCE, which is before Common Era. And AD became CE, which means Common Era. As you guys probably know, there's a bunch of different calendars. The only reason we use this calendar was because Christianity was so widespread, a lot of it by the sword. And so because of that, it was adopted, became sort of a worldwide calendar, but now we have a calendar that's so based on a religion that, the majority of the world doesn't believe in. But if we just try to change everything, now everything gets changed. It doesn't make sense. So why don't we just change the way that we refer to it, the nomenclature. So now instead of BC being before Christ, it just means before Common Era, this era that we are all having in common. And then AD is going to be, now people say after death, it doesn't mean after death. It's Adonis Domini. We can just check that, can't we? AD means, I don't remember the Latin exactly, Anno Domini. Means the year of our Lord is what it means. And so that was something to kind of remember, is that if Yeshua was born, he was born, and that's when the AD starts. That's why it's not after death. It doesn't start after he died. It starts when he was born, and that's why for some stuff, like even in the Marines, when people would receive these awards, part of the written portion of the award would say the year of our Lord, and then whatever year it was that they received it. So that's why it's called the year of our Lord, because it's when Jesus was allegedly born. So no difference between BC and BCE, others, right. We use BP before present, but that was set to 1950 CE. Yes, the year of our Lord, right. But yes, Ratzes, that's it. It's just that. It's just to de-Christianize this, because it's used around the world, but most people in the world are not Christian. I would say CE and BCE are more offensive because it clearly indicates it's a foreign calendar. The Christians here are still using the Julian, some are using the Byzantine. Yeah, I'm not sure if it would be more offensive. I think it's just a case of this is the calendar that people are using internationally. We want to make it more benign, I guess we can kind of refer to it that way. It's also really funny to me the date wouldn't even make sense. depending on which gospel you accept, Jesus was either born 6 BCE or 4 CE, and neither of those would make sense. Right. Yeah, it depends, because he was born, under 2 different Herods, and they were under 2 different time periods. Obviously, they didn't have like a co-reign. Yeah, so it doesn't really make too much sense. So I think perhaps the dates that when this calendar was made, perhaps the dates made sense to the people who made the calendar, but then as we were able to get more accurate with history, then we found out maybe it's wrong, something like that. 4 years before Christ, exactly. Well, maybe he was on one of those weird systems where he doesn't become a human being until he's at least 4 years old, you know. Those situations where like, oh, you don't name the child until they're like 100 days old, kind of thing. BC writers, the stories, they couldn't get their made-up stories straight, or because not BC, because the writers couldn't get their made-up stories straight. Yeah, that's, yeah. Do you have a calendar that you favor, or would you just start the whole thing over again? I would only favor this common calendar, just because if we were to change it to another calendar, think of all of the books and things now that would be really difficult to read. You know, it's already difficult to read books from the past because some of the language is wrong, or some of the language has changed, I should say, not wrong. Imagine trying to read a book about history and then having to do more math. Most people don't like to do math, and now we're going to ask them to do math so they can understand history. I think it would just be like another, like an unnecessary level of a barrier, you know, for people that want to study this stuff. So that's why I don't think we should change it. Let's see. And there shall be bestowed upon the elect wisdom, and they shall all live and never again sin, either through ungodliness or through pride. But they who are wise shall be humble, and they shall not again transgress, nor shall they sin in the days of their life, nor shall they die of the divine anger or wrath. They shall complete the number of days of their life, and their life shall be increased in peace, and the years of their joy shall be multiplied in eternal gladness and peace all the days of their life. So this is for people that are not going to be subject to the wrath of God because of their ungodliness. It's interesting because it doesn't say anything about like a heaven, right? And so I remember, you know, back in the day when I was in that cult, it was something that we looked down upon Jehovah's Witnesses for because they believed in a new earth rather than heaven. But if you actually read the text, it doesn't say that most people are going to heaven. It just says that, the 144,000, 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes of Israel, they're going to go to heaven. The rest of us are going to be on this new earth. And so that's what this is also talking about here. So that's kind of an interesting thing. So here we are in chapter 6, the fall of the angels. Okay. I mentioned we're going to stop at chapter 10, but since this is mentioning that it goes to chapter 11, let's just go ahead and do that. The demoralization of mankind, the intercessions of angels on behalf of mankind, the dooms pronounced by God and the angels in the messianic kingdom, a Noah fragment. So that's what we're going to go into. I heard you could change the calendar to reflect the approximate start of civilizations by putting a 2. Oh. No. Maybe a... No. Because civilizations, as we're talking like agriculture stuff, that's about 10,000 years ago, not 20,000. Yeah, so I don't think that would work. The Book of the Watchers is pretty fun. I think so. We'll go over some of this stuff as well. Sorry, I'm thinking of trying to think of any other stuff about civilization. We talked about Göbekli Tepe yesterday, but like civilization stuff, I'm trying to think of why you would say putting a 2 in front of the current year 20,000 years ago. As far as we have right now, we don't have any evidence of civilization from 20,000 years ago. but that does not mean there wasn't. And it doesn't mean there weren't, you know, like semi-nomadic groups that would have had stuff that resembled villages and things that they just didn't live in very often. But like civilization as a permanent city structure, that type of thing, that's about 10,000 years ago, yeah. And it came to pass, here we go, when the children of men had multiplied, and in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. This means attractive, if you don't know. And the angels that the children of heaven saw and lusted after them. And they said to one another, come, let us choose wives from among the children of men and beget us children. That's pretty, I don't know, abuse of power, right? I mean, ignoring the fact that you're a different species, that I would say is a huge abuse of power. You know, God puts you in charge of watching these other things he's created, and you decide to go down there and say, let's impregnate them. You know, that's, I would say, a huge abuse of power. And Simjaza, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, so we're just going to say Simjaza, who was their leader, said to them, I fear ye will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. And they all answered him, let us all swear an oath and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. So they all agreed to it, okay? So basically their leader, this is what's going on. Hey guys, aren't those women on Earth really attractive? Why, yes, they are very attractive. Wouldn't it be cool if, like, we had kids with them? I suppose it would be cool. Okay, let's all do that. Okay, let's do that. You guys better come with me, though, because if it's just me going down there, I'm going to get in trouble. Okay, that's not fair. All right. So you all agree we're going down there, we're doing the thing? And then that's when they're like, yeah, it's not just you, Simjaza. All of us are going to do it. So if you're going to get in trouble, we're all going to get in trouble. I just think it's such a funny, just this scenario, you know. Okay, so we're going to go to this interspecies breeding. Oh, yeah, Simjaza, totally. What do you mean totally? Are you being sarcastic? Because I don't want to get in trouble for this by myself. Okay, you guys. If we're going to go, we're all going to go together, and we're all going to get in trouble together. Do you swear? And they're like, yeah, Simjaza, we swear. Okay. First ever recorded speed dating. I know, right? It's just such a... I just like how that was his main concern. You know, all right, I'm going to go mess with Earth, but I don't want to be the only one getting in trouble if we get found out. You know, that's where his concerns are. Like, good job, Simjaza. Good job. Sounds like a Dark Matter 2025. So, yeah, exactly. Perhaps we can let him know this might be kind of a fun thing to make. So they all swear together and bound themselves together. And all in all, they were 200. Okay, so they descended in the days of Jared onto Mount Hermon, and they called it Mount Hermon because they had sworn and bound themselves upon this. I forgot exactly what this meant. If we do Mount Hermon, original language, I think it's like Armon? Mountain of the Sheikh. Okay, so there we are. Or Harmon. So what does that mean? Can you help us out, Shuggle? Since you're here, if you can help us out with this Arabic. Hebrew. Let's try to find what this means. If it's gonna help us. Translate.google.com, because it's like, what does that mean? Like, Herman is just like some guy's name, and it's not even spelled the same way, right? Hermon Mountain. So what do we mean by that? Is this, how do we delete this? The Herman. Okay, so what does that mean? Let's see, Hermon, etymology. Okay, maybe this is one of those words that we just don't use very much. Yeah, it's Herman. Bal Harman. Okay. From haram, to designate or consign to the afterlife. Cool. Now we got it. Pronunciation would be har as in moon. Alright. Short vowel at the beginning. Thank you. I don't Long vowel at the beginning. Harmun. Okay. It means sanctity or guarded place. Now, if we are just translating this straight, like, from Hebrew rather than Arabic, this makes more sense then. To designate or consign to the afterlife. So this would be like, we swear this to our graves, kind of thing. Which is kind of interesting. So what would this be in, like, English? Mount Promises or Mount Oath? Maybe Mount Oath. Okay. Holy Mountain in Korean. Yeah. We're just trying to figure out why they called it that specifically in reference to making this promise. And so I think that's what it would mean, like Mount, like Death Oath or something like that. Hermann Dietrich declared MIA. No, this is not that, but thank you. Let's see. So they sworn upon it. So these are the names of their leaders. Okay. You guys can read these for yourselves. No, it's so let's see. We're just call them Semaziz, their leader, Arakiba, because you know what? If I don't know how to pronounce this correctly, then why pretend, right? Ramiel, Kokabiel, Tamiel, another Ramiel, so this is maybe Ramiel and Ramiel, Danel, Ezekiel, Barakijal, Asail, Amaros, Batarel, Ananel, Zakiel, Samsapil, Saturel, Turel, Jomjael, and Sariel. Okay, has anybody heard of any of these names? Okay. Yeah, similarity. That's literally what I was thinking, Ratza. Okay. What do those carrot hats mean? Again, I'm not your English teacher, but yes, what do these carrots mean? Guess we can find if we can try to learn this. Let's see, phonetic English carrot. No, that's not what I want. Phonetic English symbols. Uh-oh. There's 103. Great. This should be on that list of ancient people. And it's not there. Okay, so it may have to do with, no, these are upside down carrots. Okay. Oh, these are Mandarin. Yeah, we're not speaking Mandarin. Oh, here we go. Long vowel that results from two short vowels. Any long vowel. Okay. So... Semizes? I don't know. We're not going to do it. Okay. Daniel might be early. Daniel, yeah, and this looks like possibly Ezekiel, but Ezekiel. I think those might be long vowel markers. Right. And I think for people like Shugel, where maybe English is not your first language, you guys are probably way more familiar with this. We tend to not learn how to read read English using this kind of like phonetic alphabet. That's just not how we're taught, which I guess is kind of silly. The way that we're taught to read English as native speakers is not the same how non-native speakers are taught how to read English. So that sort of puts us at a disadvantage, especially if we're trying to explain how to pronounce something to a non-native speaker. We don't know the phonetic alphabet to help you out with that. I think it makes a lot more sense. So two alephs would be the ah sound, two yods equals e. Yeah. Well, that is helpful. That I'm glad that we have you here to at least help us make sense of it, even if we're not all able to pronounce it exactly correctly. At least to help us make sense of it. So these are their chiefs of tens. Okay, so these are the leaders of the watchers, of like the groups of watchers, and this is their like headmaster. This is like their general. Okay, so that's how you can kind of think about these. So these are the team leaders, and this is the captain. Okay. So would it be Semjaza? The apple in Adam and Eve was way more likely a pomegranate. Cool. Not sure what that has to do with it. I always heard of quince. So really enjoying this read together. It's quite fascinating. I'm glad. Because I'm enjoying it as well. And this is when we kind of get in this like weird meat of it. So this chapter talks about the giants a bit, and this will give us just a little bit of a background. So when we talk about giants in the Bible, and some people say that Goliath, for example, he was one of the Nephilim as well, and that he was one of those giants. But, you know, people were shorter back then, and so a giant, you know, he could have been maybe like 2 meters tall, which is about 6 foot, I don't know, 6'7", 6'8". And that's what they say, and we kind of just accept it because giants, wow, that's clearly mythology, and we don't want to accept that as, you know, in the Bible. But when we talk about these giants here, I just want to show you the measurement of an L. So how, let's see, how many meters is an L? Okay, so here we have an L, and so we're going to talk about, it was 3,000. Let's just double check that. 3,000, okay? This is the height of one of the giants. 3.4 kilometers tall. And I was so staggered when I did that calculation. And I misspoke yesterday because I said something about 300 meters. No, I was off by, you know, a factor of 10 there. It was, I mean, they're quite tall. When we talk even about giants in mythology, you know, we're talking about, what, 10, 15 meters tall. These are giants. And you would be right to call them a giant. But these, 3.4 kilometers tall. I mean, that's nuts, right? So let's go ahead and read this. Let's kind of read this here. So a mountain, the whole thing about fighting one normal guy is a normal mountain. Yeah. It's pretty interesting. Giants as mythology. Has anyone seen Shaquille O'Neal? Right. The average height is 6'10", and so that's what we were always told, was that compared to the average person at the time, who was maybe 5'2", which I don't know, what is that, 158 centimeters or something, then somebody that's 2 meters tall, wow, that's so giant, you know, because in church they didn't want us to have this idea that we're talking about like Greek mythology and all of the giants, like the Titans. Really, that's what they're talking about. It says it right here. The final boss monster tall. Yes, okay. Their height might have been lost in translation. In the Bible, I don't know, because we actually read that, didn't we? We just kind of read it. Where is this King Lemuel? Oh, because we talked about that. Hang on. Okay. Come on, you. Load. What's going on? There we go. Okay. The Nephilim were on Earth, and the heroes of old. I thought it would say there were giants in those days. Maybe that's the King James? But it makes reference to giants, or Goliath was a giant. But it never talks about their exact height. Yeah, and there it is. There were giants in the earth in those days. You know, what does that mean? And so in church, you know, any time this was maybe hinted at, or any of the apologetics stuff that I've heard, they're talking about it as if they're realistic, colloquial giants. But no, this is talking about like mountain-sized humans or mountain-sized individuals. Wait, someone over 3,000 kilometers knock women. Is this what this book is saying? No. So it's not saying the height of the Watchers. It's saying that the Watchers, the children of the Watchers and the humans become these giants. That's what it's saying. That's a mighty birth defect if I ever heard one. Yeah. Yeah. Knocked up. Yeah, I think that's. I knew that's what you meant. You know, if the heavenly angels tried to impregnate human women, the size might pose a size difference might pose a logistical problem. Yes. So it's not saying that the watchers were this height. Their children are this height. So that's what it's saying. So if we think of the watchers as a god, like one of the polytheism gods, and then we have humans, these giants that they're making would be demigods or heroes that we can think of. So let's just go ahead and read that. I just wanted you guys to understand what the giants were. They're giants. They are giants. Okay. As all the others, and all the others together took with them took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one, and they began to go in unto them and to defile themselves with them. And they taught them charms and enchantments and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. What does this sound like? Anybody? What does this sound like? I'll give you guys a second as I recoat my throat. What does that sound like to any of you? Ugh. Maybe that's why I was coughing, huh? Witchcraft, exactly, Ratsa. Exactly. It sounds like witchcraft. Okay, I just fell off the bed, completely lost at this point. Okay, so Shuggle, let's go back. Let's ignore the giants for a second. Okay. So let's ignore that part for a second. Okay. So we're back here in chapter 6, and the Watchers are like, hey, those Earth women, they're pretty attractive. You know what would be awesome is if we made babies with them. So Samjaza was like, listen, this is cool, but you all better come down with me because, you know, if we don't, I'm the only one that's going to get in trouble, and that's not awesome. And everybody said, no, let's all agree. We're all going to go down there and do this thing. Okay? I love how specific that is. And do this thing. So they all agreed to this. And because they agreed this oath, now it's the name, the Mountain of Oaths. Okay? So Sam Jazil, right? So Sam Jaza, sorry. He is the leader of the Watchers, and these are like his managers, okay? So he's the captain of the Watchers, and these are his squad leaders. Under these guys, there's different groups, and this becomes important later, okay? And then, when we go here, now we see that they've come down from the mountain, and they are reproducing with human women, okay? As these women are, as they're courting them, as they're pregnant, so this is not like they didn't pull a Zeus kind of thing. They didn't just like, hey, hot chick, boom, goodbye. It wasn't like that. They hung out with them. They like almost became their husbands in a way. And they taught them stuff. And this is where this becomes a problem, okay? What was one of the issues in the Garden of Eden? It was knowledge. Right, and how do we acquire that knowledge? Not through our brains, but through some external source, which would be like the fruit. And how did we get that fruit of knowledge? We were encouraged by some supernatural thing. And whether you want to say it was just a serpent, or if it was Lucifer as a serpent, or one of these Watchers as a serpent, that's up to you how you want to do that. But this is another part of that humans were naive and had to be taught something else. And it is witchcraft. But what is witchcraft? What is witchcraft? Okay? Witchcraft is not magic as we think about it, like street magicians or something like that. Witchcraft is just learning stuff that other people aren't learning. That's really all witchcraft is. Being able to use things about psychology that other people maybe just didn't study very deeply. Being able to read people very well from certain facial movements or something. Being able to provide advice that sounds divine. That's where things like reading tarot cards and stuff come from. It's providing advice to people for what they need in such a way that they're able to understand it better than if you would have just said, hey, I'm your friend, here's my advice. Okay. Witchcraft is also the study of plants and things. And what is it for? Well, yeah, you can think of like the evil crone in the forest, and she's, making poison apples or something. But really, witchcraft was for healing. Okay. And this is one of the reasons when we, fast forward significantly into the medieval ages in Europe, that was the reason that these witches were attacked just for making healing tinctures or healing teas, because if I am relying on my knowledge, I'm not relying on my faith. And that's where this becomes like a big issue. So hopefully, let's see what we got. I like math. Cool. Is chapter 7 about overpopulation. We will get to that. Shuggle is back on point. Cool. Glad we got that. Let's see. It's cool. Witchcraft. Yeah, I think so. I guess you can say it's just being a nerd. It's just being a nerd in the forest. Okay. I think there's a difference between pulling rabbits out of hats magic and the magic arts and the like. Yes. And so Shuggle, just if you want to use that English, magic like this is something like illusions and tricks. And then magic with a K is just the witchcraft stuff I just talked about. Okay. So that's all witchcraft is. The only reason it's demonized is because it's knowledge. That's it. So kind of bad. And that becomes a problem later on in here. That's why I want to make sure we all understand it. So anyway, they get pregnant and they have giants. Okay. So that's where the giants come in. The irony of modern day fundamentalist soccer moms being into naturopathy would have been condemned as witches. Yeah, that's true. Although, to be fair, a lot of stuff that a lot of religions do, including Christianity, can be considered witchcraft, like having a special emblem, like a icon, which is like your cross necklace or something. For Catholic Christians, things like beseeching saints to pray on their behalf, like intercessory prayer for them, like that. The laying of hands, that's a psychological thing, and that's for like Protestant Christians sometimes. Music, that's used. Lighting of candles, ritual, a lot of that has to do with just the psychological aspect of it. Yes, so when I talk about magic or witchcraft, Shuggle, in the context of these classes, we are talking about the one with the K, okay? So basically, another way you can think about magic is merely demonized knowledge, okay? That's all it is, all right? So I want you guys to understand that. Magic is just demonized knowledge. That's all it is. Okay. So when we're reading this stuff and we're reading it in the context of like witchcraft and those types of things in these books, anything that's related to like the Judeo-Christian or Abrahamic, because it would also apply to Islam, anything that's related to that, when we're referring to witchcraft or magic, we're just referring to knowledge that has been demonized. Because the more you know, the less you're faithful. Right? If I know how to cure a disease, I don't pray to cure my disease. If I know how to achieve this thing, I don't seek the church's help to achieve this thing. And that's why it becomes demonized. And so that's all it was. That's it. So it's not, when we think about, oh, they killed these witches and oh, that was so stupid. Witches aren't real. Witches are real. They're just people, usually women, that were demonized because they knew stuff that the church wasn't able to answer. They knew how to handle an upset tummy, They knew what kind of tea or something to give you for an upset stomach. If you were just vomiting a lot, they could give you a certain tea that would stop you from vomiting because they tested this. It was like early science, really. Compared to the church, if I keep praying and keep asking, the priest or the bishop or the monk or the nun, please pray on my behalf. Why am I vomiting? Why am I so sick? Those prayers don't help me. And that's it. Those were witches. That's all witches are. So that's a really unfortunate thing. Essential oils, I saw Captain Curfew put those in quotations. The reason that they're called essential, they're not essential in that they are necessary. They're essential in that they are the essence of a thing. So that's why they're called that. FYI. What about the term charlatan? One who falsely claims to possess some special knowledge or skill. I'm not sure what you mean about that. What do you mean about that? Was it all about the money? It could be, but honestly, for other people, it's just that the more that you rely on. So, take a step. For the church, as a capital C, the church, this kind of stuff would be, all about money and about power. Absolutely. Even if they were not realizing it, like doing it consciously, it is about money and power. Okay. For the average person, though, it's about faith. Okay. And I've known, and you probably have known, religious people who refuse certain things because it interferes with their faith. They refuse things like certain types of entertainment because they believe it's going to interfere with their faith. Some of them refuse medical treatment because they believe it's going to interfere with their faith. Okay? So this is not, for them, it's not about money. For them, it's really about their faith. And that's, I guess, the sad thing about it is they're, denying themselves what could be life-saving treatment just because of faith. So the only essential oils in my life are the ones that I put in my food before I shove it in the air fryer. Nice. Nice. So we have this. They're learning stuff from the Watchers. Okay, so I want you guys to remember that. They become pregnant. They have giants, babies. Hopefully the babies themselves are not, they're going to start off as a baby size, And this is the really interesting part. Okay, so the giants are hungry, right? That makes sense. And they just start eating everything, okay? And so the people in that area, they're like, we can't feed these giants anymore. Like, they ate everything that we produced. They ate all of my cows, and they ate all of my neighbors', farm production, all of their produce and stuff. So the giants start eating the people in the cities and the villages, okay? And then they start, it says, then they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, to devour one another's flesh and to drink the blood. So they're just like eating everything, okay? And then the earth laid accusation against the lawless ones. So what does that mean? We're going to see that in the next one here. And so, Ratza said that they already read ahead, which is great. It's pretty gnarly, okay? So what did the Watchers do? They, for whatever reason, didn't want to be alone, shared knowledge, and then a bunch of bad stuff happens, okay? What they were probably thinking, if I was one of the Watchers, from that perspective, I'm probably thinking to here. I'm going to go hang out. We're going to see these pretty earth ladies. We're going to have some kids. I'm going to teach them some cool stuff. I feel, a connection to these humans because I got to watch them all the time and whatever. This part, they probably had no idea would happen. That's my guess here. So they kind of messed everything up. How do you hide this from God, right? How do you hide that from God? My daughter bought me an 18-pack of essential oils and a carrying oil for Christmas. I used them. Clove oil, for example, was the best I found for toothaches. Yes. And so there's a lot of good essential oils. Just be careful because they shouldn't be consumed, but perhaps rubbing it on the body is okay as long as it's in a carrier oil. And some of them shouldn't be breathed in, especially for pets, or if you have certain asthma, you shouldn't use peppermint oil, for example. So Yukova, we kind of talked about that. If you want to join the Discord, you can ask about that a bit. I'll send an invite. This is not a permanent invite, it's just for today. Okay. So, going on. So here is where I said, remember that we have these leaders, okay, these squad leaders. So now what are the squad leaders doing? So Azazel taught men to make swords, knives, shield, and breastplates, known to them as the metals of earth. The art of working them, bracelets, ornaments, the use of antimony, which, what is that, mercury, and the beautifying of eyelids. No, is antimony mercury? Sorry, just double checking. Metallic, silvery, no. Sorry, it's a different silvery metal. And the beautifying of eyelids, costly stones, coloring tinctures. Okay. What does this sound like to you? What does this sound like? Because we mentioned, you know, oh, I think some of the stuff seems like demigods or something like that. What does that sound like to you? Do we know any other people in the past that have taught humans how to use metal? Magical alchemy. Sort of. Alchemy, remember, is the, well, it's sort of a study of the elements and then also how to convert some to gold. Blacksmithing and makeup. Yes. So that's where we got. So we can have some alchemical aspects to it, but really we're thinking things like Hephaestus, right? One of the gods of metallurgy, okay? That's one of the watchers. And there arose much godlessness. They committed fornication. They were led astray and they became corrupt in their ways, okay? Semjaza taught enchantments, root cuttings. Armoros taught the resolving of enchantments. Bar Kajal taught astrology. Kokabel taught constellations. Ezekiel the knowledge of the clouds. This is like the goings of the daily like weather stuff, so like the sun and stuff. Sariel taught about the course of the moon, so the moon phases and things. And as the men perished, they cried, and their cries went up to heaven. Okay, so what we have here is that not only were the watchers, they're not just like these angels that observe. They're angels with special knowledge that they were not supposed to share with humans. Okay, and we see this in, again, you know, I made reference to Hephaestus. We see this in Greek mythology, don't we? Where we have the gods or demigods that have information and they are not supposed to share it with humans. Once they do, they become punished. Okay, so like Prometheus shared fire and Prometheus was punished forevermore. The people still have fire, that doesn't go away, but Prometheus is punished for sharing it, right? That's the same thing that's happening here, okay? And what's kind of sprinkled in with this is that as they're teaching people all of these special knowledge and special skills, people are led astray and becoming corrupt, okay? When we're talking about godlessness, that doesn't mean that they're doing anything bad. It just means they're doing something sinful, and we have to make sure we understand the difference. Something bad is something that has a moral implication, like can be harmful to another person. But something that's sinful is a thing that God said not to do, but you did it anyway, okay? And there's a lot of sins in the Bible that we could look at and say, there's nothing morally wrong with this. And there are things that are permissible in the Bible that we can look at and say, there's a lot of things morally wrong with this. So whether something is godless and sinful has nothing to do with how moral it is. And so one of the things of godlessness is lacking faith, right? So what's happening here? People are just realizing, hey, we have our own power, you know? We know how to make these things, and we are learning more about the goings of the universe, and not the universe, but the stars. We're able to know more things, and that's how they're led astray. Because remember, what does Yahweh want? He wants worship, okay? So that's kind of what's going on here. We got 2 more chapters, and then time to head out for me, okay? Now we've got our archangels, all right? These are guys that are like doing God's, like they're his messenger kind of things. They're the ones that exact God's wrath. They're the ones that share messages from God. So then Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel looked down. Let's say Gabriel. Let's just keep that in there, right? They looked down. Sorry, You guys are writing some stuff. Someone copied their older brother's homework assignments and changed a few words around. Right. It sounds like the church making up nonsense because they were getting beat in a tech race. So remember, this is pre-Christian, so it's not the church. But yes, something like that you could say. Because remember, the best thing you can do is worship, not learn. And so while you're stuck in this like worshiping and singing and writing kind of loop, everybody around you is creating. They're learning, they're progressing. Okay, so that could be considered sinful to do that. So these archangels look down and they're like, what the heck is going on Earth? Okay, a bunch of stuff is dying, there's a bunch of lawlessness, and it's kind of like, hey, where are the watchers? Shouldn't they be making sure this doesn't happen? And why is it happening? Also, you know, it's like they're probably, you know, you can kind of think about it as these, you know, managers or general managers walking into the store and they see there's a bunch of like looting and stuff, and they're like, hey, wait a minute, where's all the employees at? And why is there all this looting? Like, what's going on here? So they said to one another, the earth made without inhabitant cries, the voices of their crying up to the gates of heaven. So what without inhabitants cries, the voice of their crying? Does it have any? No, it doesn't have any comment there. Okay. What does this mean? It appears to be the earth itself is crying up to the gates of heaven. And now to you, the holy ones of heaven, the souls of men make their suit, saying, bring our cause before the Most High. Okay. So remember, these are the watchers and a handful of women that they chose to make their wives. And all their weird offspring. The rest of the planet is very upset. This is not like a decision that was made between the watchers and, you know, an agreement with humanity, okay? And who are they teaching? Right? Who are they teaching? The wives, right? So now, you know, some of these men are learning to make swords. These are people that are making some kind of connection with the watchers. Okay, if I see this guy, looks kind of different, I don't recognize him, he's got this wife, they're hanging out, he's teaching them stuff, and I'm like, hey stranger, you know, what are you doing over there? Oh, yeah, let me teach you how to do this thing. Cool. This is not the rest of the village, this is not the neighboring city, nobody else is in on this. These are like a handful of people learning this stuff from the watchers while the rest of humanity suffers, okay? So this is the earth having a bad day. The people on the earth having a bad day, and they're like, somebody please send the angels, send God something. And they said to the Lord of the ages, Lord of lords, God of gods, King of kings, and the God of the ages, the throne of thy glory standeth unto all the generations of the ages, and thy name, blah, blah, blah. God, God, we love you, okay? Thou hast made all things, blah, 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 blah. All things are naked and open in thy sight. This just means you can see everything plainly. You see everything, nothing can hide itself. Okay. So they're basically saying, God, you know, verse 3 is like, God is amazing, amazing, amazing. You're super amazing. You're all amazing, amazing, amazing. And because you're amazing, you certainly can see what these watchers are doing, right? And look at all the bad stuff they've done. All of these eternal secrets which were preserved in heaven have been revealed to humans. Look at this, which men were striving to learn. Again, we have this demonization of knowledge. Okay, it's kind of interesting. And then remember their captain, Semjaza, to whom thou hast given the authority to bear rule over his associates. Okay. And they have gone to earth with the daughters of men, slept with women, defiled themselves, made a bunch of giants. It's a bad time. Everybody's sad. And now, look, God, the souls of the people that have died in this insane cluster mess are crying and making their suit at the gates of heaven. Their lamentations have ascended and cannot cease because of all the lawless deeds that are wrought on the earth. So imagine like you're one of these archangels and there's the gates of heaven, and there's just suddenly a bunch of people there screaming and crying, like, why am I dead? This sucks. What's going on? And you, like, look down at Earth, and you're like, what? What is this? When did this happen? Where are the Watchers? They're supposed to not make... Are they making stuff like blacksmithing? Excuse me, what's going on? So this is just a really weird thing. Again, if Yahweh is omnipresent, none of this would have had to be, brought to his attention, right? The Lord, thou art very big. Gosh, we're really just impressed down here. Yeah, exactly. Let's see. And thou knowest all things, and they have come to pass, and thou seest all things, and thou dost suffer them, and thou dost not say to us what we are to do in regard to these. Okay? So it's basically saying, hey, you know everything, and you see this is happening, and you gotta tell us what to do. All right, dude, you gotta tell us what to do. So what do we do? Okay, now it's our next chapter. And then the Most High, the Holy and Great One, spake, and sent Uriel, the son of Lamech, and said to him, go to Noah. That's where we're at. Okay, Genesis chapter 6. Go to Noah and tell him, in my name, hide thyself, and reveal to him that the end is approaching. The whole earth will be destroyed, and there is a deluge, a great flood, that is about to come upon the whole earth, and I will destroy all that is upon it. That sort of sounds like the first few chapters, doesn't it? Is this referring to the end of the world? And that's why I was saying we have to check out the context, right? So it seems like perhaps it's not necessarily referring to the end of everything, but perhaps it's referring to this particular situation, okay? And now instruct him that he may escape and his seed may be preserved for all the generations of the world, okay? Now this makes a little bit more sense, because when you read Genesis chapter 6 and you read about Noah, he's just kind of this drunk dude, and he's just kind of a regular guy. He's not particularly righteous. What's righteous about him? He's still human and he's alive. That's kind of it. Isn't that where we're at? That's kind of it. Hopefully now choosing Noah makes sense, because when you read Genesis, you're just like, this guy, he's a drunkard. That's all he is. He's just this drunk. And he gets naked and drunk a lot, apparently. And he even curses one of his kids for covering up his naked butt. You know what I mean? Because you saw dad naked and you're going to be cursed forever. And that's a different thing unto itself. But now it kind of makes sense, right? They're still genetically human and they're still alive. That's it. Those are the two requirements that God needed. Okay, so that's why they chose Noah. Not that he was awesome, but just he's alive and he's still human, and so are the rest of the members of his family. Okay. Maybe that's why he didn't learn anything. He was too busy being drunk, and his kids were too busy trying to take care of dad when he was getting drunk at the bar. You know what I mean? So it's kind of an interesting thing. And again, the Lord said to Raphael, bind Azazel hand and foot and cast him into darkness, and make an opening in the desert, which is in Dudael, and cast him therein. Okay. Remember when we were talking about this at the beginning of the video, how we're going to talk about the creation of demons and how it's referenced that some were cast down. This is where this is from. Okay. And place upon him rough and jagged rocks, cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever. Cover his face that he may not see light. Okay. So this is where, this just is a guy getting bound up. This is not our concept of heaven, right? Or hell, sorry. This is not a place and souls are there and it's fiery and sulfur. It's not that. Okay. What is this? This is a guy that's tied up, thrown into a pit in the desert and covered up with jagged rocks. Okay. Which I thought could have just been rocks, right? Jagged rocks. That's an extra step there. And on the day of the great judgment, he shall be cast into the fire, and heal the earth which the angels have corrupted, proclaim the healing of the earth, that they may heal the plague. Plague, we're not talking about plague bacteria as a class of bacteria, family of bacteria. We're talking about like a great problem upon the earth. And that the children of men may not perish through all the secret things that the watchers have disclosed and taught their sons. And let's see if we can go back to this. Okay. God saw the wickedness of man was great. Okay. And everything was evil. Now we know what that was. Education. That's all it was. Okay. Remember, these are the ones that are still alive. A lot of people died. So now we're also thinking about it that way too. That this is not necessarily a worldwide flood that needs to be done. This could be a local flood because it's just affecting this area. All the people in this region have either died or made friends with the Watchers. Okay. That's what makes them wicked. Okay. So now this kind of makes more sense. I would say maybe it repented, or God regretted that he made man susceptible and curious, and it grieved him at his heart because, remember, this was not his intent. He kept them away from this stuff. The Watchers were the ones who ruined his plan. Now, of course, we can say, well, therefore God's not omnipresent and blah, 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 and cool. But now this sort of makes more sense, right? He set up a system to work a certain way, and without, like, against his express permission, or against his express instructions, the Watchers went and ruined it. And now he's got to go kill everybody because the rest of them are dying, and he's got to kill the ones that are still messing things up. Okay, so now this kind of makes sense. All right. So I will destroy the man who I've created from the face of the earth, blah, 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 blah. Man and beast and the creeping thing and the fowls from the air. Okay. Why is he still killing the animals? Not 100% sure yet. All right. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Remember, it says he's a just man and perfect in his generations, right? Now we know just here means like justice, okay? But maybe we can even change this around. He was just a man, right? He's not anything else. And perfect in his generations, not perfection, but just human. He's still perfectly human, okay? Now this starts to make more sense. Because when we see Noah's behavior, he's not perfect as a person. But his generations, his genetics are still normal, right? They're still normal human genetics. So that's kind of where we are here, okay? Let's see. Heal the earth. That's what we're doing with the water. And proclaim the healing of the earth, blah, blah, blah. And that all the children of the men may not perish through the secret things that the Watchers have disclosed and taught their sons, okay? Noah and his family have not learned any of this, as far as we know, okay? So the idea now is not only to get rid of all the people, but also to get rid of all the people that were friends with the Watchers, but also to get rid of the knowledge that the Watchers have shared. So basically like a do-over, like a hard reset is what God is trying to do here. And the whole earth had been corrupted through the works that were taught by Azazel, or Azazel, to ascribe to him all sin, okay? Now that, again, let's go back, okay? Azazel, he's this guy teaching this stuff, okay? But he's not their captain, which I thought was kind of interesting, because Simjaza, he's like the captain, and he's like, this better not come back to me. And everyone's like, yeah, fine, it's all of us. And yet it just goes to Azazel, okay? So it's kind of interesting, which, by the way, he's not even here. He's not even listed here, okay? So it's kind of an interesting thing. So now, ascribe to him all sin. And Gabriel said to the Lord, proceed against the bastards and the reprobates. Okay, these are going to be, the children that are born without, married parents. And against the children of fornication, and destroy the children of fornication and the children of the Watchers from amongst men. So these are like regular kids and Watcher kids. Send them one against the other, they may destroy each other in battle, for the length of the days they shall not have. And no request that they or their fathers make of thee shall be granted unto their fathers on their behalf, for hope they live in eternal life, and that each one of them will live 500 years. Okay. What does this mean? It's kind of clunky, isn't it? So he's basically saying, let them all fight each other. Azazel taught them how to make battle stuff anyway. Make them go fight each other, okay? And then their days are not going to be long. This is when they're going to start cutting short that length of living, okay, that time period, which also happens again in Genesis 6. And then remember that even if their fathers cry out to help their sons, don't listen to them. What I don't understand here is that their fathers could be like their human fathers that raise them, or are they the watchers? When the watchers that are the fathers of these weird giants, if they cry out, okay? But I think it's the fathers of human sons. And the Lord says to Michael, go by Simjaz, remember he's the captain, and his buddies, okay, who have united themselves with women, so as they've defiled themselves with them in all of their uncleanness. And when their sons have slain one another, and they have seen the destruction of their beloved ones, bind them and fast them for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth, till the day of their judgment, and of their consummation, till the judgment that is forever and ever shall be consummated. Okay, this is a pretty interesting punishment. Okay, that Simjaza, remember Simjaza and his friends, they're not, I don't get the impression, maybe you guys do, I don't get the impression that they're looking upon women and saying, let's go make a mess of things. They were just like, hey, we're all dudes here, and, you guys are cool, you guys are my buddies, you guys are my, you're my bros. But gosh, wouldn't it be nice to, like, settle down and have a family? And I feel like that's what the Watchers were trying to do here. They did it, and then, oops, they really screwed things up, okay? Probably didn't expect to have kids that are, mountain-sized, right? So now, not only are Simjaza and his buddies being punished, but one of the punishments is to watch their wives and children perish. That's really cruel, I would say. It's a really cruel punishment, okay? Azazel was just wrapped up and thrown into a desert pit. That sucks. But these guys are also going to be punished in a similar way after they watch their families die. So it seems like Azazel wasn't one of those that had children. So it's kind of an interesting thing. So when their sons have slain one another, okay, we've read that already. In those days they shall be led off to the abyss of fire, and to torment, and the prison in which they shall be confined forever and ever, and whosoever shall be condemned and destroyed will for thenceforth be bound with them to the end of all generations. This 13th verse here, which is kind of fun, this is where hell is created. Okay? So it's not just... Now, when we hear about this, it's like rebellious angels and blah, 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 fighting against God. That's how I heard about it growing up in church. But really, it's lonely angels that were having compassion upon humans, were hanging out with them, and was just like, hey, I can do this thing with metal. Let me teach you. These are just guys, like, just trying to make a family for themselves. Just kind of hanging out, left... maybe even ignored by God. Remember, nobody noticed that they weren't even doing their job. Nobody noticed any of this until the archangels started seeing a bunch of random souls screaming and crying at the gates of heaven. So these are like neglected angels. You know what I mean? They're just there. And what was their job? Here's a bunch of knowledge, but don't share it. And you can watch the people, but don't interact. What kind of job is that? You learned a bunch of stuff, and you're just... looking at Earth. That's all you're doing. Like, that's such a... what did they do to be punished in that way that's their job, right? So these guys are just like, look, nobody cares about us anyway. And these people look really great. We can help them out, and man, that girl's really pretty. I want to maybe have kids or something. You ever think about having kids sometimes? The humans have kids. What if we can have kids with them? They're trying to, like, create a life for themselves, and then they're punished for it. So it's kind of interesting that that's the case that's made here. That's the situation that's made here in the book of Enoch. It's not like rebellious angels fighting against God because they think they're better than him. That's how it was presented in church for me. These are just guys that they were ignored. Nobody cared about them. Nobody cared. They had a non-job and a lot of information. And then they went and tried to make a life for themselves, and now they're being punished for it. So that's sort of a different kind of concept, right? Destroy all the spirits of the reprobate and the children of the watchers, because they have wronged mankind. Destroy all wrong from the face of the earth, and let every evil come to an end. Let the plant of righteousness and truth appear, and it shall prove a blessing. The works of righteousness and truth shall be planted in joy for everyone. So this is basically, again, hard reset of earth. And then shall the righteous escape. They shall live to beget thousands of children, and all the days of their youth and old age they shall complete in peace. Okay, and of course we know later on, spoiler alert, that doesn't happen. Then shall the whole earth be tilled in righteousness and planted with trees, and be full of blessing. Look at the trees. And all the desirable trees shall be planted on it, and they shall plant vines, and the vines shall yield wine in abundance, blah, 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 olives, 10 presses of oil. Cleanse the earth from oppression, all the unrighteousness, all from sin, blah, 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 blah. This is, again, hard reset, okay? And it's not that anything that was happening was bad. It was ungodly. Remember, those are not synonyms, okay? Hello, Joey. And all the children of men shall become righteous, and all the nations shall offer adoration, and shall praise me, and shall worship me. And the earth shall be cleansed from all defilement, from all sin, from all punishment, from all torment, and never again will I send upon them from generation to generation and forever. Okay? That's it. Right? The Watchers were having a time. The humans were having a time. And what was their sin? They didn't need God. And God said, that's unacceptable. Delete, delete, delete. And then copy paste what we had before, which was trees and niceness and everybody praising me. That's pretty cruel, right? That's pretty cruel. We're going to go ahead and stop there. I said we can go to chapter 11. Let's go to chapter 11 next time. Hopefully this has been enjoyable. I know that a lot of you have been hanging out. This is, over 2 hours long, so I do appreciate that you guys are hanging out and watching it with me. Let's see. Sounds like a mountain tribe went down and started to intermarry. The less tech-savvy ones steeped in superstition got jealous, wanted to kill a greater number, but left after a local flood. Yeah, it definitely could be. Yeah, I had fun with this. I've only ever done this in text, so it was a fun time to be able to talk about it, get some interaction with you guys. So yeah, we'll start, next time we talk about it, we'll start from chapter 11. Again, if you guys want to check this out, you can. I'm going to post it as well in the Discord, but you guys can check this out. So that'll take you to this chapter here. I do have a lot of time these days because I am on a break. So I would like to do this perhaps tomorrow. And then for the lessons stuff, that's part of like a textbook kind of series. That's something I was thinking to do maybe once a week, and just kind of make it a regular class once a week. And then just as I have time to do these like other stuff, like the apocryphal stuff or those things. So yeah, any assignment, if you want, you can learn more about the jobs of the archangels. That would be fine. Same time tomorrow, I know that some of you, it's not the best time, and then ending now, it's maybe 2 a.m. or so for some of you. If possible, if we can do it maybe a couple hours earlier, so it would actually end around the time that we started today, we can try that. I'll see how I'm feeling towards the end of the day today, and then I'll let you guys know, because if I'm having sort of a persistent migraine, then I typically would need more sleep, so I wouldn't be able to really wake up at like 6 and get us into this at 6. Okay. Assignment is to read the Silmarillion. I'm just gonna keep trying. Just the title is enough work. It is. Yeah. So if you guys wanted to know any of the who is Azazel, you can learn more about Azazel, or you can learn more about the archangel's jobs. So if that's what you want to do for homework, you can choose one of the following. Learn more about Azazel, because he wasn't listed in the group, like the squad leaders. Or you can learn more about the job of the archangels. Okay. So that's if you want to do that, and then we can talk about that maybe to start off tomorrow. So that's kind of fun. So that's just if you guys feel like doing something. Since we are going to go over the text itself tomorrow, you don't have to go over the text by yourself. We can go over it tomorrow. You can preview it, and then when we go over it tomorrow, it might make more sense. But yeah, for the Azazel or the Archangels thing, that might be fun to kind of supplement what we're learning. So on that note, I will see you guys tomorrow. Please go to my channel about page if you need to try to find me on Twitter, Instagram, Discord. Oh, there was another one. Twitter, Instagram, Discord, or something else. I forgot. It's there. Okay, not the see. All right, so remember we want to know the context, Ratza. Okay, because I've had students do that, like in geography class when we're doing like basic definitions for mouth. They're like, oh, the opening on the front of the face, and I'm like, cool. Biology, we're geography, so it's probably not going to be about a human body or an animal's body, right? Especially since the rest of the context is about water, we want mouth. So, but again, that's my fault, so I had to change that to mouth parentheses of a river. So we do want to make sure we get the right context, okay? Did you give them a good grade though? No, because we went over this before. That's why. Normally, if I make a mistake and I'm not more clear, I usually give them like some points for it. But we literally went over it, and I told them, don't put things like mouth, or for channel, don't talk about television. We're talking about water, you guys. Ha ha ha. Oh, teacher, that's silly. None of us would do that. And then, 40% of the class did it. So it was, so for the future classes, because you have to teach similar things every year, the update was mouth, parentheses of a river, channel in geography, or channel not on TV kind of thing. So yes, I can update that, but also, hey, you guys should have paid attention. And, you always get the students that are like, teacher, of course we're not that stupid. And then they go and do that, which is not stupid. It's just not paying attention enough on this one thing. So I don't think the students are stupid for that. Just not, they're in another zone. They've zoned out. They're not in the right zone though. Okay. You're in a zone, but it ain't the one we should be in. Okay. I don't know what it is, but it ain't it. All right. B- clearly. Yeah, maybe. No, usually for something like that, I might give half points. But in other cases where, you answered it, like I had an extra credit question that was on an exam, end of the year. What was your favorite place to study what was your favorite place to study in this class and why? And I was expecting, I liked learning about Northern Europe because I thought it was cool, because whatever. I liked learning about all of the caves in Eastern Europe, something like that. But some students wrote, next to the wall so that way I could lean on it. And I still gave him the extra credit. It's extra credit. It's my fault. But, yeah, that was... it's just sort of lets you know where they were mentally. Burned out. These poor students just burned out at the end of the year, just studying for too many exams. Now my exams, I always give the study guide 2 weeks in advance. We go over it a week in advance in the class, plenty of study time, right? So I know it's not that I was putting too much pressure on them. It's just with everything else, and I think every student has a tendency to procrastinate. When I was a student, I did too. So it just kind of shows like that end of the exam, end of the year. Oh my goodness, I just want to go home. What's my favorite place to study in the class? Well, I really like sitting in the back, so that way it was darker. And that's what they would put. I don't think it was clever. I think they were just that done. Do you know what I mean? And I don't say that in a negative way. Obviously, I gave them full points, you know, for that. Plus, it made me laugh. You know, made me laugh. So, you know, can't hate it. But I don't think they were doing it to be clever. I think they were just that out of it. And so, you know, again, hey, get extra credit because I feel bad for you, you know, kind of thing too. Anyway, see you guys tomorrow. And yeah, if I can't see you tomorrow, I will post about it. Like if I wake up and I got a screaming migraine, I'm not going to do this. So I'll let you know, okay? Again, Instagram, Twitter, Discord, I will update those. Also, this channel's community section where I can make posts about stuff. You guys can see it there too, okay? Other than that, yeah, I will see you tomorrow, hopefully. Yes, exactly, Rat. So see you tomorrow, hopefully, as well. All right, guys. Adios. This was fun.